everyone, so I'm super excited about this video because I have been contemplating it for quite some time. So today I'm essentially going to talk about how to get through it, because suffering is for sure a very universal experience and it's a constant we have. Like, all of us suffer, that's just how it is. And so I figured it would be a super interesting video to essentially talk about how to suffer the right way, and of course these are all my opinions. So yeah, I'm excited to share with you guys what I found through my own suffering, and I hope y'all enjoy it. So I should probably preface my whole situation. Earlier this year, I had a really rough time. I had just graduated from university, so for the first time in my life, I really had time to think, or like the first time in my adult life I had time to think, because not gonna lie, for the past 4 years, even if something hurt, I couldn't afford the time to just, sit and think like, oh my god, it's hurting, how am I going to stop this suffering, because I had shit to do. So I couldn't just sit and suffer. When I was really struggling with my mental health, it was the first time in my life that I actually sat down and felt all of the feelings. And so I think it was a pretty productive time because I've had tons of self-growth, and I feel like I've gotten a ton of knowledge regarding the whole spectrum of suffering and human pain. Oh my god, this sounds so dramatic. But yeah, so I guess I'll start sharing all of that with you guys right now. So tip number 1 is non-resistance to what is. So I have two aspects of essentially how I was resisting my own pain. So on one side, I used to essentially feel guilty because I would compare my own hurting with the people who I felt hurt a lot more. So as soon as I would feel that life was somehow unfair, I would sort of think, well, the fact that I have a roof over my head and a family that loves me sort of puts me in a place of privilege, and I shouldn't feel sad because people in this world suffer a lot more. And I think it is very important to acknowledge that people in this world suffer a lot, and hopefully in our lives we are going to strive towards improving other people's lives. However, it is equally important to acknowledge your own suffering. Just sort of circling back to that whole aspect of universal suffering, we all suffer. We wouldn't know joy without suffering. It is a part of the human condition, the whole human experience. So if we all suffer, then it is incredibly important to allow yourself to suffer without feeling like you suffering is taking away from someone else's, if that makes any sense. And the other aspect is I would almost undermine my own suffering as a coping mechanism. I would just tell myself that I shouldn't suffer because it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, and so in turn I wasn't honest with myself, and so I suffered more because I was just sort of suppressing all of the hurt. So tip number 1 being non-resistance is just allowing yourself to feel. So as soon as you allow yourself to feel those true, honest feelings, you are on that whole journey of healing, because you are allowing yourself to feel. And after you feel, the only thing that's going to happen is that you are going to come to terms with those feelings. So yeah, tip number 1 is just to allow all the feels and not resist the feelings. If you resist them, it's not like they're going away anywhere, They're always going to haunt you, and you are not going to acknowledge them, so you're going to have to suffer a lot more than you would have had to originally if you just sat with your feelings. So it's incredibly important to sit with your feelings. So tip number 2 is probably the most important, and the one tip I'm just so grateful I was able to learn, because it pretty much changed who I am. So it is to share your feelings. One way to share your feelings is to share your feelings with people who deserve your vulnerability. And it is incredible how other people's perspectives can really put a spin on your own. And I think it is pretty common knowledge that when you share your feelings, you feel good. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. And so I'm just going to head on to the other part, which is sharing your feelings with yourself. And for me, that was through journaling, and holy shit, like the amount of growth I felt, I could just tell that I was emotionally growing a lot just because I was reflecting on these feelings. So just a little backstory. So I have pretty much journaled from when I could start writing. So I have journaled for a long time. However, that whole experience of suffering I had experienced earlier this year was completely different from anything I had felt prior, because it felt like I was drowning. How journaling helped was incredible. So just going back to the previous point of non-resistance, since I was just super honest and just super true to all the suffering I was feeling, and I was self-reflecting on that through journaling, it was just so therapeutic. Like, I'm not sure I will be able to explain it well enough, so I just highly recommend, if you aren't into journaling yet, start, because self-reflection is incredible. And I could tell that I was evolving as a human. You know, I was finding a lot more emotional stability. I was growing because I was seeing all this suffering I was feeling, and instead of right away turning to those negative feelings of self-hatred or anger or jealousy or just that whole victim mentality, I was reflecting on all of these feelings and somehow finding enlightenment through that. And so yeah, tip number 2 is just sharing your feelings with the people who you can trust with your vulnerability and with yourself through self-reflection, aka journaling. Tip number 3 is to recognize joy from pleasure. Essentially, pleasure is a cheap emotion. It is short-lived. It is usually through things that aren't helping you in the long run. I do think it is important to sometimes just do things for pleasure's sake. However, I think it is incredibly important that you understand, that you acknowledge to yourself what you are achieving is pleasure and not joy. So as I said, pleasure is cheap. You can find it in food, you can find it in infatuation, you can just find it in things that aren't going to provide joy in the long run. So if you are finding that comfort in food or, you know, other sources of pleasure, and you think it is what is helping you get through the day, then by all means pursue that pleasure. However, just stay true to yourself and understand that what you are pursuing is pleasure and not joy, because joy is long-lived. Another aspect of that whole joy versus pleasure spectrum is an escapist mindset. I think we all know that we sometimes put arbitrary values on arbitrary things and experiences just to have hope in something outside of ourselves, as if that is going to save us from ourselves. Something that really essentially established in me how escapist I am is that I was supposed to travel pretty much this entire year, because I had graduated earlier this year, and you know, that's just what I wanted to do. Of course, because of COVID, I couldn't. So I planned this trip to Vancouver, Canada. I'm from Calgary, Canada, and so it's just an hour flight. It's super close, and at that time Vancouver was in stage 3, so you know, like it was all good. I was just so hyped up about that trip. You know, I was like, it is going to save me from everything, from all these feelings I don't want to feel, from all the suffering I really would appreciate not having. That trip was going to solve all of my inner problems, and of course not. I was just sitting in my hotel room like on September 1st or 2nd or something, and it really hit me that what I had was an escapist mindset. I was essentially thinking that travel would help me escape, and it was just such an incredibly important understanding to have, that of course travel can change you. You know, it can add a lot to who you are as a human. Travel is absolutely incredible. However, if you're traveling to escape yourself, you probably shouldn't, because all those inner demons that you have, they can fit into your carry-on, as dramatic as that sounds. Traveling is not going to help you heal if all of your healing has to be done intrinsically. You know, you can travel all around the world, you can travel outside of the world, you can hop on a rocket and just, you know, shoot out. But you need to heal at an internal, at a cellular level, and you cannot find that healing through external means such as travel. So it was an incredibly important lesson for me, because I just sort of understood all the things I put value in for my future life. Oh, you know, if I have this, like, I will have it all, that type of a thing. And I do think I am a pretty mindful person, so at a certain level I knew that career success, or you know, all the things I want in my life, like, it isn't exactly about those, it is about the journey itself. However, that whole trip to Vancouver really solidified within me that all the things I need to find success or happiness are here inside me. That sounds, oh my god, that sounds incredibly cheesy. I really came to terms with the fact that career success, or all these things I want in my life, aren't sort of antidotes for the hurt I feel on the inside, or for the void I feel on the inside, because I could have that ultimate career, or I could travel the world and achieve all those things that I feel are things I need to achieve to feel a certain way. I could have all of that shit and I could still feel incredibly empty on the inside. So it's something we all know. I don't know why I just spent so many words on explaining this, but yeah, it is super important to, number one, recognize joy from pleasure. And if you are indulging in pleasure, have at it, but just understand that shit is short-lived. And number two is not to put hope of a happier or an improved life on the outside through external experiences such as travel, and to not attempt to escape what you feel on the inside through other things, because what is on the inside stays on the inside, and you can heal on the inside and not through other external things. Oh my god, I'm almost cringing at all the words I'm using, but it is something I feel incredibly passionate about. Tip number 4 is probably my favorite tip, and it's something I'm sure you know, but this is just to reiterate to you, because it's just so important to remember every now and then, and it's that time heals all wounds. So just sort of zoom out from this exact time and recognize that time is going to pass. You know, even if it's just some very shitty times you're having, it is going to pass, and time heals all wounds. For me, whenever I think about that, I think about October 20th, 2018, when I think I had the first meltdown of my entire life. So essentially I was struggling with this quantitative biology assignment, and I could feel my entire world was just unraveling. So I was thinking, if I am struggling in this class and I do horrible in this class, I won't be able to use it as a prereq for other classes that needed me to have this class. So if that's the case, then I am not going to graduate on time. If that's the case, I can't travel, I can't have all these things I want to have, and I ended up doing very well in that class actually. However, what I'm trying to establish is that even if I had a horrible grade in that class, I would survive, you know, I would be fine. And just circling back to that whole aspect of time healing all wounds, the example I shared was very superficial. I have had a lot more of hurting and just sort of feeling like my entire world was going to shatter, and then time passed and I was fine, I was thriving. And even if we relate it to my struggles earlier this year, it hurt and I felt like I was drowning. However, here I am, and I think I am pretty good. And of course I have other reasons to stress and worry and find sadness over. However, all those other reasons I was suffering for earlier this year are pretty much irrelevant. Like, I am completely fine in regards to the things I was suffering about earlier this year. So yeah, so tip number 1, non-resistance, feel your feelings. Tip number 2, sharing your feelings. And of course with that, journaling. Remember to journal if you haven't yet. Tip number 3, recognize joy from pleasure. Pleasure ain't shit, joy is the shit. So recognize that. And tip number 4 is that time heals all wounds, and it might feel like you're just drowning right now, but you are going to surface, and you're probably going to surface on an incredible tropical beach, and you're just gonna have a blast of a life. So even if today is bad, just have hope at that time, and self-reflection and allowing yourself to just feel. That is the antidote. I sort of feel like I'm this like weird old fortune teller, just kind of like telling you the secrets of life. But yeah, I am very passionate about all the things I shared, because I truly think I healed in a very healthy manner, and if I can help any of you out there, like, it's incredible. So yeah, subscribe to my channel. I hope to make tons of like lifestyle things, like advice and vlogs and just all the stuff that make me happy. So yeah, I will see you guys later. Bye.